Welcome, everybody, to this session on critical writing. What we're going to look at today is the difference between higher level styles of writing and basic styles of writing. We also will look at what critical writing is and how you will use critical writing to improve your work and get those higher marks. On certain slides within this presentation, you will see a hyperlink at the bottom of each slide. That will give you more detailed information on our website about the slide. So our first slide is Bloom's taxonomy of learning. On that diagram, you will see a red line. Anything below that red line are skills which students usually come to university with: comprehension, your understanding, knowledge and facts. Above that red line are the skills which you need to enhance to get those higher marks. So they're your higher level skills. Think critically. What you need to do is understand these three terms. So description, analysis, and evaluation. You will see these words usually in your learning outcomes. Description, try and keep that to a minimum when you're writing, because that was considered a low level skill. Analysis and evaluation are higher level skills. So it's important that you don't use your word count too much on description. So you want your word count to be on your analysis and evaluation. Looking at more in depth on the topic, you'll be applying facts to the problem, and you'll be looking at advantages and disadvantages of certain theories and maybe coming up with a solution or recommendation. Criticality, where does that come in? It's really important when you're doing your research that you take a different angle when you're doing your reading. So you've probably thought, oh, it's written by an academic, it must be true. Always do a bit of investigative work when you're looking at authors. So this will allow you to be more critical. For example, how reliable is that information? Some academics might be sponsored by a big business or charity. If that's the case, there's usually a disclaimer on the actual article. That could potentially be open to some bias. Who wrote the article? Maybe the article academic has written quite a lot on that subject, so that would mean that they're actually quite an expert in that subject. Look at the methodology that academic has written about. Is it strong? For example, there might be a research question, and that research where they gathered that information, it might have been done online. So does that sample take in people's views who might be not as digitally advanced as other people? Have a look, do a bit of investigation, and think, how can you critically analyse that? What is critical writing? It's really important that you don't accept what you read. Question everything. Is it the only source of information? Do other sources say that it could be inaccurate? Do other authors agree or not? So it's really important that you do bear in mind those questions. Criticality can come in many different forms. It can be putting forward an argument. You might be asked in your learning outcomes to compare and contrast. So that would mean you're deciding between different options. So you would analyse each of the points to make a decision which you think is a better option. I would also be looking at evidence. So in these types of questions, criticality comes from recognising that some evidence is more critical than the other. But don't forget, both sides of the argument mightn't be equal. Criticality needs judgment. You need to be judging that research, whether that is of sound academic ability. So one of the ways which you can do that is in your note taking. So you can see the grid that we've got here. The example we're using is what's the best temperature for learning in the classroom. So you can see we've got on the left-hand side, we've got a column which has got the resource. So we've actually done our referencing, which will really help us when we're writing our assignment. And in the middle, we've got the question, and then we've got evidence. For example, on the second row, we've got Fallows. So our question is, does Fallows agree or disagree with Jones? And then we put our evidence in the right-hand side column. And equally, we do the same thing with White and Smith. So that allows us to visually see where the argument is going, and we can see that we are critiquing all the different views there. So that's a really useful template. We also have a note-taking template. Again, at the bottom of the slide, you can see the hyperlink for that. It's a Word document, so feel free to change any of the headings on it. But what this allows us to do, some days we might be really on the ball with our reading, and other days this might not be as sharp as we should be. We might have kids have been up at night, for example. What this allows us to do is to be consistent with our note taking. So we know that we're reading for meaning for the same things, whether we've had a good day or a bad day. Within health subjects, there's also critical appraisal tools that will help you with your assignment. CASP is one of those. If you're not doing a health subject, your lecturer will be able to advise you if there are any critical appraisal tools for you to have a look at. These are an example of some comments which you could use to be critical. So you can see what we've got there. For example, let's look at the third one. X was written in 1980. However, it was considered seminal, so needs needed to be included. So they're examples of how you can write critical comments. And you can see it's not adding a lot to your word count there because they're, a sentence and a half. So always keep things simple. Don't try and overcomplicate it. You might be asked to compare and contrast. So here we have some examples of how you can compare and contrast. Again, this is good structure to use to help you write critically. Okay, we've looked at researching the problem. We've looked at the higher level skills and the lower level skills and how they would impact on your learning outcomes. We've looked at your research and assessing the strength of that evidence, and we've also looked at making a judgment and how you can come and write critically with that judgment. To draw your attention to, we run a range of workshops throughout the academic year. There's a web link there for those, so feel free to book in. They're all done in Teams, about 30-40 minutes, so have a look at that. Thank you very much, everybody. And if you've got any questions, you can go on the academic skills page and speak to one of us. Thank you.